Hi guys. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is the audio situation. I'm trying to make it better. So I bought this fancy new mic from Rode and everything, and it was a little bit expensive. But you see, I'm stupid. And I know that my camera can't support mics that draw its power source from the camera. It has to have its own power source. And this one doesn't have its own power source. So we have bad mic here again today. I think I'm gonna return this one. I bought it off of Amazon, so I'll probably return this one and try. Maybe I have to go and splurge on the really good ones, but yeah. So that's the deal with the audio for this video. It's an ongoing problem. Yeah. So this video is going to be a wrap-up of all the books that I read in July, and then a TBR of all the books that I want to read in August. Okay, so the first book I finished in July was Windfall by Jennifer E. Smith. I read this book very, very quickly. It wasn't anything super special. It wasn't like the best book that I've ever read, but it was really entertaining and really fun to read. It was a real good time. It was a little bit predictable, but I basically knew the entire plot going into the book, but I still enjoyed it because you're there for the journey, not necessarily the plot twist, right? It was a fun time, good vibes, 5 stars. I definitely recommend it. The next book I read in July is The Boy at the Top of the Mountain by John Boyne. And this is the same author who wrote The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. And this is set in the same time period as The Boy in the Striped Pajamas during the Holocaust. And our main character, Pierrot, is an orphan who grew up in France, but then when his parents die, he moves to live with his aunt in Austria. And turns out he's actually living in Hitler's mansion, and Hitler is the master of his house. And so he kind of develops a relationship with Hitler. And it's interesting to see because in this book, it's like you really sympathize with Pierrot and you grew up with him and you know where he comes from, but then at the same time you kind of start to hate him because he's kind of corrupted by Hitler's ideas. But Pierrot is such a precious boy, and even though he's doing terrible things, we still have hope for him. We still have hope that he can get his conscience back and figure out what he's doing and that he shouldn't be an asshole. Also, the end, when you find out who is actually writing the story, it's in Pierrot's point of view, but Pierrot is not the one who wrote this story. And see, if you read this book, you know what I'm talking about, but I didn't see it coming. I think I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. And I was very pleasantly surprised. But yes, so this book, 5 stars. I definitely recommend it. Okay, so the next book I read, it was actually 2 books. I read the first 2 books in the Hatching series by Ezekiel Boone. It's that one where I talked about in my first video, I talked about Skitter, which actually ended up being the second book in the series, not the first. Sorry, I just got a call. Anyway, and so I read those 2 books. There is a third. I have not read it yet, but I do plan on reading it because I'm hooked. I want to know what's going to happen next. But I did give the series 4 stars because I feel like nothing happens in the first 2 books. It's all just been rising action. There's been no climax. So I'm thinking maybe that's the 3rd book. There'll be a climax and a resolution and falling action, the pyramid that we all learn about in school. Because in the first 2 books, it's really just kind of the same thing over and over again. And you learn barely anything about the spiders that are taking over the world. But at the same time, it's a wild ride, and I'm hooked, and I need to know what happens. And the other thing I didn't really like about this book is that you kind of get point of view whiplash, because every chapter is a new point of view, but it has so many points of views. Each chapter is basically a new character, and you're introduced to a new person, and there's so many of them that you kind of get whiplash. It's oh, who's this person? And then later in the book, when you revisit a person that you met earlier, you can't remember who they are because there's so many other point of views in between, if that makes sense. So if I could change one thing about this book, I would change how many point of views Ezekiel Boone is writing into his story, because I felt like that was a little But I will be reading the 3rd book. I forgot what it was called. I think it was Zero Area I'm wrong about that. I gave the series 4 stars. Maybe the third book will change my mind. Maybe it won't. We'll see. The next book I read in July was Passing by Nella Larson. I read this for my English class. I wrote a paper on it. You can see all of my annotations here. This book is super short, but also super dense. I think I would really need to reread this book to be able to get everything out of it that I think Nella Larson was intending for you to get out of it. But even then, if I read it again, I probably wouldn't get all of it. There's just so much in the book. It has a lot of very deep societal commentary. So the story is about our main character, Irene, who is African American, but she is light enough to pass as a white person, and she has a friend named Claire who is also African American but does pass as a white person. And so there's a little bit of like the racial loyalty theme. A lot of critics actually also claim that this book is passing itself for a story about racism, when really it's a lesbian love story between Irene and Claire. And I can actually see where they're getting at that. So I think this is a really good book for everyone to read. I didn't rate it because I don't like rating books that I read for school, but I did like it and I recommend it to everybody. So the next book I read in July was Words on Bathroom Walls by Julia Walton. This book it just like hit my heart so much. I loved it so much. 5 stars. It's about a boy named Adam who has schizophrenia, and the whole book is his journal entries talking. That's my AC. I'm sorry. I was hoping to get this done before it kicked on, but I guess not. I'm sorry. I'm moving dorms on August 9th, so maybe my next dorm will be better and that AC, we won't have that problem, but maybe not. I don't know. But anyway, I think the AC kicked on when I was talking about the same book in my last video. YouTube. I think that would be funny. Anyway, so this book is a compiling of journal entries that Adam made, like writing them to his therapist because he's doing this drug trial for a drug that's helping with his schizophrenia, and he refuses to speak to his therapist. He won't speak in their sessions, but he will write to his therapist. So the book is a compilation of those like journal entries he writes to his therapist, and I'm not ashamed to admit that I cried so hard at the end. Like, it's so good. It's so good. Anyway, there's a lot of teenage angst, a lot of romance, a lot of high school stuff. There's also some social commentary about how we treat people with disability in our society, the negative stigmas we have against schizophrenia, how we think it's so dark and scary, but in reality it's only a very small percentage of people with schizophrenia have that stereotypical violence that we think of, when really it's just like a teenage boy struggling to be normal and go to high school and love his girlfriend, Yeah, it was really good. 5 stars. Highly recommend. So the last book I finished in July was the audiobook I was listening to, Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. It's the second book in the Red Rising saga. And I talked about it briefly in my other videos, but now that I finished it, I kind of want to give my overall review of it. I gave it 4 stars, just like Red Rising. I think I really need to reread these books in a physical copy because so much happens in the book, and when I'm listening to an audiobook, my mind tends to wander a little bit. So like, I normally listen to audiobooks while I'm walking to class or just going on a walk, and so I'll be walking down and I'll see a bunny, and so my mind wanders for 5 seconds thinking about how cute the bunny is, and then all of a sudden, like, everyone's dead and the planet is exploding. Just so much happens that I kind of got confused and lost a little bit, and then I kind of got disinterested in the story because I didn't know like why things were happening, what was really going on. And so I really think I need to reread them as a physical copy so that I can pay more attention and actually understand what's going on better. And so I don't think I'm going to continue this series as an audiobook. I will kind of put a pause on that until I can reread the physical copies, and then I'll continue the series because I think I like what's going on. I just don't know what's going on, if that makes sense. Okay, so moving on to the next segment of the video, I'm going to tell you what I'm reading right now. The first book I'm reading right now is Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Byron. I hope I said that author's name right. This book is pretty good so far. I'm on page 106 so far. And at first I was really like, it was kind of absurd to me because I don't understand why the society puts so much stock in the Cinderella story, and like I don't understand why they like shaped their entire society and all their laws and their government around the story. But then I kind of started to realize that yes, it's absurd, but it's also a social commentary, kind of commenting on how as a society a lot of times we can put too much stock in absurd narratives and people suffer for it. And so it's getting better. It's a lot of suspended belief, but I will continue reading it, and I'm kind of liking it so far. This one, I'm going to make a book talk on it. That'll be my next video. I'm going to do like a dedicated video to talking and reviewing this book and talking about the social commentary, elements of this book that I liked, elements of it that I disliked. The other book that I'm reading right now is Good Kings, Bad Kings. Good Kings, Bad Kings by Susan Nussbaum. I'm reading this for my English class right now, and it's so heartwarming and so cute. So it takes place over multiple point of views, but Nussbaum does it better than Izzy Gilboon, and so I don't feel like I'm getting point of view whiplash here. And they are in a nursing home for kids with physical and mental disabilities so that they can like live here and go to school and be taken care of. And you get both sides of the point of view. So we get chapters that are the point of view of the kids with the mental disabilities, and then you get the point of view of the people who work at the nursing home and get the outside perspective of the kids. And it's fun to compare those, and so far it's really cute and heartwarming, and I love it. And I'm only on page 44. I probably will get even better, honestly. I highly recommend it. The other book that I'm reading right now is the audiobook that I'm listening to. I'm listening to the Foxhole Court by Nora Sakavic. And the only reason I was interested in this book in the first place was because of the fan art that I keep seeing on Instagram. Like Neil and Andrew, I think. It's like freaking beautiful, and it made me want to read the book so bad. I've started it, I'm about halfway through. It kind of gets crazier as you go in. The main character, Neil, gets the contract to play for the Foxes, this game called Exy. You think it's just gonna be a sports story, but then the more you get to know about like the backgrounds of the players, the crazier the story gets. There's like gangs and murders, and so far it's pretty good. It's not exactly my cup of tea because it's very realistic fiction, but yeah. Okay, and then I'm just gonna quickly go through my TBR for August because I'm running out of time. So I've picked 10 books, and it'll kind of be a game because I'm probably not gonna read all 10 of these books, but I will read most of them, and so you kind of have to guess which ones I'm gonna read in the next video. When I do my August wrap up and September TBR, you'll see which ones I actually ended up reading. Okay, so my big stack. So the first one I have is An Enchantment of Ravens. You know that I got this in my bookstore adventure last video, and I talked a bit about it, so go and watch that for more information. The next one, Get a Life, Chloe Brown. Similar thing, I got this in my last video when I went book shopping, and the whole entire internet is really excited about this. So I'm excited about it, and I think I really want to read it. The next one, Blood of Elves. Same deal, I got it in my last video. It is based on the video game and the TV series called The Witcher on Netflix, and I'm excited to know more about the world. The next book, same deal, I got this in my last video when I went shopping, and it's Carrie by Stephen King, and I've always wanted to read more Stephen King. I've never read anything of Stephen King, and so I really want to pick this up, and I'm hoping I do, but I also know that maybe won't. The next one is Ballad, but then this is the same deal as Skitter. I talked about it in my first video, but I figured out that this is actually the second book in this series by Maggie Stiefvater, and so the first book is called Lament, and so this is like two combined. I want to read Lament and Ballad in August. Okay, so the next two books are The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer and The Evolution of Mara Dyer. I know this series has more books, but these are the first two and the only ones I have. I would definitely like to read these. I talked about them in my first video. Still haven't read them, but I would like to. And then I think this is the last one. Oh, no, second to last one. This is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and I also feel like the whole entire internet has read this and talked about it, except for me. So I really would like to read this. It's supposed to be really sad. I think I'm going to cry a lot, and I'm ready for it. Okay, and then the last book is the book that I kind of already talked about. I want to read the third book in the Hatching series by Ezekiel Boone. I want to finish that out and see what the heck they do with all those spiders. This is all that I have for the video today for the July wrap-up and August TBR. I will do these videos every month at the end of the month, so stay tuned for those. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you want to stay tuned for my next video, which is going to be the book talk for Cinderella is Dead, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you get notified when I post a new video. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time. Bye!